Si spostano le guardie adesso.
Madonna che pazzesco. Anche se io non voglio prendere il in realtà. Guarda che pazzesco, O spendi che l'oraggio, vuoi la pizza? Se posso una pausa, il servizio militare c'era come una... Poi sono di Svizzera immediatamente.
And for more on the day's events, I'm joined now by CBS News special correspondent Nora O'Donnell, once again in Rome. Nora, I understand that you were invited to pay your respects to the late Pontiff last night. Please do share with us about that experience, what you saw, what you felt.
Good morning to you, Errol, from here in Rome. That's right. We were invited to a private viewing of Pope Francis at his home in Casa Santa Marta. It's actually the same place where we interviewed him just about 1 year ago. And I have to tell you, last night, it was a somber occasion. The private viewing was for nuns and priests and people who work at the Vatican. And so we waited in line with other faithful, and we stood just feet away from the Holy Father and were able to say a prayer. It was pretty quiet inside, except for one little girl who we heard cry there. And when we left, we were given this prayer card, which is quite beautiful. And you know, it's just a last moment to pay our respects before he was moved this morning in this procession from Santa Marta into St. Peter's Basilica to lie in state for 3 days ahead of that state funeral. And so we actually were down in St. Peter's Square earlier today talking to people from all around the world who are waiting in some pretty long lines, actually. And it's warm here in Rome today. But we talked to somebody from Oklahoma City. We talked to somebody from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, somebody from Mexico, all who say no problem waiting in the lines. They want to be able to say goodbye to Pope Francis. As one woman said to me, because he changed my life, he changed the world.
Just remarkable, Nora, to hear you describe your invite from last night. And I would imagine for so many people in St. Peter's Square now, it's also a bit surreal considering the Pope was addressing people there on Sunday and now his casket moving through ahead of Saturday's funeral. Help us understand the tone and the mood and how today likely feels a bit different than yesterday or even the day before.
Yeah, it's a really good question because, you know, one of the things and one of the most special moments about our interview with Pope Francis is when we asked him, do you like being called the People's Pope? And he smiled really broadly because he did have this pastoral approach. And then just incredible to think how hard he was working on his last day alive on Easter Sunday and was in the Pope Mobile, of course, out with the people. And now the people are returning the favor and coming to say their final respects and pay their final respects to Pope Francis. You know, he always said, say a prayer for me. And so people are saying a prayer for him. But there is a sense of modesty, too, and humility about what's happening today. I'm sure you watched what was this very grand and unprecedented procession led by the College of Cardinals. But just as he is placed, his coffin was placed in front of the high altar inside St. Peter's Basilica, it is not on a grand pedestal. It is low to the ground. And that is, you know, he chose the name Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, who was a revolutionary priest who talked a lot about the poor. And then we will see, too, in his funeral mass on Saturday, and then, of course, his burial at a different church, not here at the Vatican. He is being buried at the Basilica of St. Mary Major, which is all the way across town. That will be a much more modest funeral service than usually befits the pontiff or the Bishop of Rome, as the Pope is known as. We've actually been to that church, Errol. It is a beautiful church, and the reason that Pope Francis chose to be buried at the Basilica of St. Mary Major is because it was a very special church to him, his favorite church. He would go there before and after every one of his trips to pray before Mary, the Blessed Virgin Mother there, and so that's where he will be laid to rest. And he has requested that it just simply says Franciscus under his grave. Not, you know, usually when you see them, I'm sure you have, Errol, it says, you know, which pope they were, and there's a lot of grand letters, but this will just say Franciscus.
And I think it's part of the reason why so many don't mind waiting all the hours today to get a glimpse of him and say their goodbyes. A real once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Nora O'Donnell, great to see you. Thanks so much. Now we want to bring in James Grimaldi. He's the executive editor for the National Catholic Reporter. Good morning to you, James. And the last we spoke, I believe, was on Monday. You said you were moving through the stages of grief. At that point, you were angry that the Pope ignored medical advice. I'm just wondering, what stage are you in today? How are you feeling now?
Oh, yeah, the stages of grief. I didn't realize this was going to be a psychiatric consultation today. Right now, I'm in planning mode because we're going to have 5 people in Rome for National Catholic Reporter, ncronline.org, and I'm getting on a plane. So I'm sad. I would say I'm probably sad today.
And we were speaking about what comes next. You know, might the church once again elect a pope from outside Europe? I mean, are you hearing any rumblings about what comes next?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we really, we really don't know. I think we talked about that on Monday. It's kind of a fool's errand to try to guess who this is going to be. I'm relatively new to this job, but I've always been fascinated by the papabili, as they're known. It's a kind of a created term in Italian press where these lists of names of potentials. You know, there are 135 in the College of Cardinals. 108 were selected by Pope Francis. So he basically selected 80% of the people who were there. And everyone wants to know, are we going to go to we're going to be liberal? Are we going to be conservative? Are we going to be Italian? We're going to go back to Italy? Are we going to go out to the margins? I mean, these are all the big questions. We don't know exactly what direction they're going to do. As I said on Monday, only God knows. And by the way, I will tell you, I think even Francis surprised the people who selected him, right?
Hmm.
So he became this pastor pope. I think people expected that, but he really reached out to the margins of the church, reached out to LGBT Catholics. He elevated women in their role in the church. And I'm not sure that's exactly what the College of Cardinals thought 13 years ago.
You know, it's interesting because the movie, The Cardinal, The Conclave, which looks at the passing of a pope and this entire process, streaming of that is up a couple 100% as people become newly curious. And that movie follows a surprise, twists and turns. Could it truly be someone, the next pope, that we haven't looked at all? I mean, are these surprises truly that possible?
Well, having seen the movie, I love the movie. It's a pot boiler. Have you watched it? It's pure entertainment. It's Hollywood's version of what they want. I guarantee you that I don't want to do any spoilers here. I guarantee you we will not have an ending like that. That will not happen. And I do not believe it will be someone who would be completely unknown, right?
Okay.
It will be someone who is relatively known within the College of Cardinals.
Very good note. And you didn't provide any spoilers. James Grimaldi, great to chat with you. Safe travels. Hope to chat with you again soon.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And we will bring you the funeral of Pope Francis on Saturday in a CBS News special report. Coverage begins at 4 a.m. Eastern right here on CBS News 24/7 and on Paramount+.